The sea darkened as if someone were turning down the world's dimmer switch. Sunset retreated behind low clouds, leaving a lead-gray sky flat as steel. The 5 TBM Avengers of Flight 19 kept gliding forward, their V formation held as if by instinct. In the cockpit of the lead plane, Lieutenant Charles C. Taylor fixed his eyes on the horizon, a vague, fragile line between sky and water. He glanced down. Gauges still glowed steady green, all normal. Only the compass needle refused to settle, slipping past north, brushing west, then trembling like the tail of a hooked fish. When daylight lingered, pilots could still judge direction by the sun, but now the clouds had swallowed it whole. Above, the sky became a sealed lid, shutting out every star. Below, the sea lay flat like a black mirror. No island, no coast, no point of reference. Absolute disorientation was not a phrase, but a physical sensation. Chests grew heavy, throats tightened, as if each pilot had been locked inside a room with no doors, no walls, no lights. Leader to all, maintain formation. Don't look at your compasses. Keep your wings on me, Taylor ordered, his voice forced steady. 2, roger. 3, copy. 4, roger. 5, understood. The radio still carried their voices, but static now scratched faintly at the headphones like sandpaper. Silence followed, not because there was nothing to say, but because no one knew what words meant anymore. East? West? North? South? They had become letters fallen off the page, stripped of meaning. For a young cadet like Lewis in Plane 3, the confusion was palpable. He tapped the glass of the compass, hoping the needle might change its mind. It shivered once, then kept on defying him. In Plane 2, Rains leaned to catch sight of Taylor's wing. For a moment, that steel span became the only direction left. As long as I see it, I'm not lost, he told himself. But another thought hissed back. What a salt smell, even a spine sense to feel which way he was turning. Tonight, the wind was flat, the salt thin, his spine silent. Are we standing still? A cadet gasped into the intercom. The question was absurd. The engines roared, the airframes shook. Their speed was real, yet the sensation of stillness was undeniable. Without markers, flying and not flying felt the same. Reality itself wavered. Leader, this is 4. I feel like we're circling, came another low, hoarse voice. Negative, Taylor cut him off. Hold position. Do not trust your senses. But he knew too well. Sensation was all they had left, and sensation was the most deceitful thing of all. For minutes, nothing changed. Formation held. Fuel needles slid down. Compasses spun their mockery. Then, something did change. Not outside, but inside. A thin sheet of certainty. We know where we are. Cracked. Through that crack, fear seeped in. It did not scream. It sat quietly and began to consume what scraps of confidence remained. Fear did not arrive like a storm, but like fog. Silently, persistently. Once thick enough, it blurred every decision. Taylor felt the pressure in his chest, yet refused to let it color his voice. Flight leader to all, adjust slightly with me, keep spacing. Close, but not too close. No altitude changes without orders. Formation was their last anchor, yet survival instinct whispered alternatives. In Plane 2, Rains muttered, If we turned west, west has to be real. His crewmate stayed silent. West is real sounded more like prayer than logic. They had no west. They only had each other's wings. Leader, this is 5. Request permission to turn 10 degrees west to search for land. Maybe catch a shore beacon. The voice was firm, clinging to the last scrap of reasoning. Negative. Hold formation, Taylor replied, his words breaking through static. He thought about climbing through the clouds, searching for stars. But a change in altitude could scatter the formation. Scatter meant lost. Lost meant gone. Leader, this is 4. Feels like we're spinning. I fear we're circling. Taylor's grip whitened on the yoke. No circle. Hold on me. He knew vertigo well, the inner ear lying when vision failed. But vertigo spreads like contagion. One pilot speaks it, all feel it. Hold on me was the only antidote. Time slid by. Fuel gauges fell. The only honest needles left were those of fuel, and their honesty was cruel. They did not measure direction. They measured how much longer they had to live. Inside, the real turns happened in the mind. From trust to doubt, doubt to panic, panic back to forced trust, zigzagging without moving an inch. The formation remained straight, but each man's thoughts scrawled jagged lines. Every order from Taylor pulled them together and tightened the noose at once. A faint tremor ran through the airframe as they entered denser moisture. Not a storm, only thicker air. Yet all 5 pilots thought, perhaps this is the boundary between mapped and unmapped, between report and myth. Absolute disorientation is not merely the loss of direction, it is being trapped in emptiness. Human minds need meaning. When meaning is stripped away, they fabricate it. That is why illusions bloom like moss in damp corners. In Plane 4, a gunner swore he saw lights under the sea. His pilot looked, only glowing waves. No, it's a ship, he insisted. They argued, voices rising. Even a flicker of false hope could ignite disorder. Taylor's voice cut in, flat and sharp. No ships, hold formation. In Plane 3, Lewis counted engine beats to make an internal clock. 60 beats a minute, 300 beats 5 minutes. He needed some yardstick, any yardstick, to prove time still had shape. At each 5-minute mark, he whispered, "Still here." How much longer could the trade last? A dark thought brushed Taylor. What if I switch the radio off and gamble? He pushed it away. The radio, even fractured, was the last thread binding him to them. It gave no bearings, but it gave them a reason to stay. Outside, the world stayed unchanged. No coast, no stars, no marks. Inside, everything shifted. Body heat rising, heartbeats quickening, sweat dampening masks, belts tightening. In absolute disorientation, the body becomes the only instrument left, and it is wildly inaccurate. Men begin trusting those shaky readouts because they have nothing else to trust. Eventually, even the feeling of being alive comes into doubt. Life means moving toward somewhere. Here, they only drifted. The universe shrank to a cockpit, a few glowing lights, the growl of engines, the smell of fuel and metal. The rest of existence was black. Taylor spoke, as if to himself. As long as I'm here, the formation's here. Logic did not matter. It was a wall against collapse. Sometimes, a commander must build walls with words before he can build them with direction. Fuel needles sank to 3/8, numbers colder than any wind. Absolute disorientation did not kill outright. It sawed through minutes until time itself snapped. A cadet whispered over the headset, "Leader, if it comes to emergency," the words trailed into the shape of the sea. Ditching in night waters, a lesson everyone knew, no one wished to live. Water looked flat, but had teeth. Black waves, crosswinds, vertigo. Heavy planes hit, snapped like sticks. Belts, rafts, shattering glass. All had to happen in one breath. In these waters, rescue was a variable, weather a variable, position a variable. Only cold was certain. Taylor refused to name the fear. "Not yet," he said, his tone carved dry. "Hold formation. Conserve power. No turns without command." Simple orders, like breathing #at meta, pause. Rika 0.05. Each would tumble into his own pit. A small wrong turn, a slight bank, a beautiful mistake that killed. Taylor stared into the dark as if into an animal's eyes. He knew he could not read it, only endure before it. "Flight 19, hold," he repeated, like prayer. From each cockpit, 5 faint replies. "Hold!" In the heart of nowhere, sometimes the only verb left is that. And the night went on. No stars, no shore, no direction. Only men, each a small flame, shielding one another from the wind. From high above, one might have seen 5 wandering sparks, forming a fragile V. A V not just of formation, but of humanity's last order, carved into a plane without coordinates. The night wind laid a velvet film over the steel wings of the 5 TBM Avengers. All clung to the V formation as though it were the last rope keeping them from falling into a bottomless void. But holding forever is an act against the instinct for survival. When humans are trapped in a maze without exit, they will want to turn, if only to feel that fate is being changed. In the headphones, static bled into broken voices. "Leader, this is 5. Request 10 degrees west. To try for a shore beacon." Taylor tightened his grip on the yoke, eyes locked on the darkness ahead. He knew well that west, now, was a concept thinner than mist. Yet his order could not be a wall too rigid, for when fear stretches too far, a wall too rigid will crack. He waited for a breath. "All right," he said, releasing the words like a stone. "Bank with me, 10 degrees for now. All hold formation. No one breaks away." The whole flight tilted their wings. The air mass wrapped around the planes changed its pitch slightly, like a sigh. In cockpit 3, Lewis felt his heart regain rhythm. Action always felt easier than waiting. In 5, Matthews twisted the dial feverishly, hoping some invisible needle beyond would meet his antenna. But outside, the night was still ink black. The radio waves rose and fell, leaving no words behind. 10 degrees brought no miracle. After 5 minutes, Taylor rolled them back to neutral, then weighed a counterturn. In tactical handbooks, this was called sector search, sweeping small arcs around a guessed heading to find a firm signal. On paper, the procedure looked neat. In the sky, it felt like turning the radio knob in a room full of silence. The more you turned, the more you doubted your ears. "Leader, this is 4. Nothing to the left. Suggest trying right." "Roger. 10 degrees right. Hold formation." They turned again. The ocean left no trace for turns. No skid marks, no dust, no lamplight. The water's memorylessness made every left. That taunt was worse than silence, like someone knocking once on a wall, then walking away. Taylor did not curse. He knew every sigh from a commander became weight on the flight. He reset his breath, considered another turn, this time 20 degrees. "Follow me." They swung deeper, speed held, altitude steady, the formation still a slim spear piercing black silk without pattern. But in each mind, a small scratch appeared. Are we drawing a giant arc, looping back where we came? The next turns no longer carried names. They were only impulses hammered into orders, undone when results proved nil. Yet somehow, all the unnamed turns began to resemble each other to a frightening degree. The irony of changing course: the more you change, the more the brain believes arrival is near, but any true map, if one existed, would show you drifting away. For Flight 19, each turn was a painkiller. It dulled the ache of stasis, but bruised the fuel supply. "Leader, another 10 right?" "Roger." "Lost the signal, back left." "Roger." "Climb 500 feet to break cloud?" "Negative. We lose sight of each other." The dialogue snapped short, dry as biscuit crumbs. They no longer wasted long sentences. Fuel did not allow long sentences. Only verbs survived: bank, return, hold, follow. In plane 3, Lewis suddenly felt his body sending false signals. His inner ear told him the plane was banking right, though the attitude gauge showed level. He knew it was vertigo, sensory betrayal in darkness, but knowing did not make it vanish. He clenched his jaw, stared at the gauge, forced himself to trust a needle. Ironically, at the very moment they could not trust the compass, they had to trust other needles. Matthews kept hunting stations. Each turn, he nudged the frequency, fanning the dial like an invisible paper fan across the night. Now and then, gray syllables stirred. "Field, 19, bearing." 2 words together would have been a lifeline, but the words refused. It would be a warped flower, petals of arcs flaring and curling back to the same center, the heart of confusion. Each petal was a burst of hope, each stem its return to nothing. In 2, Raines whispered to himself, "Maybe Florida's only a few miles away, if we just pick the right turn." The naive thought carried the essence of every loop. One right move could free them, but not knowing which, they tried all, and that very trying consumed the minutes left. "Leader, this is 5. I think we're farther north. Request south turn." "Basis?" "I feel the wind." "Night winds shift. Not enough," Taylor replied. His voice was not harsh, just tired. Turns grew more spontaneous, though still within command. No one believed in a single frame of reference anymore. Each man carried a fractured map in his head, and Taylor stitched them together with coarse seams. Somewhere in that stitching, the coast, if near, slipped farther away. The loop devoured not only fuel, but will. When one cycle ended and another began, belief in the next was thinner. Even hold began losing effect, like a painkiller overdosed. Some nights men fight storms. This night, they fought degrees on a rudder. Each degree was a drop of gas, 10 degrees a stretch of miles, each turn a scrape off their faith. Fuel needles dipped below half. Matthews scribbled calculations. Cruise speed X, burn rate Y as Z minutes left. The number was ugly. He erased, recalculated, rounded, still ugly. Mathematics does not pity. "Leader, plain question," Four asked. "If we go on, do we have enough to turn back?" "We've turned back many times," Taylor said, blunt as a blade. "And we have no proof where back is." In 3, Lewis caught a subtle shift in the commander's tone. Less comfort, more truth. As time thinned, comfort lost value. Truth, however cold, could realign the psyche's needle. He tightened his straps, whispered, "With lives strung on wings, 10 seconds became an ethic." "Right 10, tight, 5 minutes," Taylor ruled, gavel-like. Those 5 minutes dragged longer than any drill. Nothing welcomed them. No lights, no stations, only tense breathing. "Return heading," he said, and felt his heart drop. That failed turn gouged their faith further. None spoke it, but all felt. It was the third cost of every degree. Not just fuel and time, but the temperature of belief. When it fell low enough, even formation wavered. Taylor knew he was steering 2 panels, one of metal in front of him, one of hearts behind. "Flight 19, listen." He changed his tone, calm and slow. "No one is wrong. We are following correct rules in a ruleless night. Your task is to fly well. Leave the rest to me." The phrase, "fly well," struck like a nerve, giving pilots a goal they could master inside a context where nothing could be mastered. Wings eased, formation tightened. Aesthetic discipline, strangely, salvaged survival discipline. Fuel needles crossed 1/3. A collective silence passed through the cockpits. No words were needed. From here, each turn signed a contract with ditching. "Leader, if it comes to that." "Not yet," Taylor cut. "As long as we fly, we have a way." The words weren't true, but they were necessary. Sometimes the function of language is not to describe reality, but to hold men inside it. After dozens of small turns, a few large, and one long straight, a picture formed in Taylor's mind. They had traced a nearly closed figure, a loop without map. He did not see it in the sky. He felt it in the sum of choices, in the way fuel and time needles sank in chorus. "Flight 19, straight. No turns unless hard signal," he ordered again, like sealing a letter with wax. He guessed that if a chance existed, it lay in persistence, not in knob twisting. But persistence charged its own toll, the gnawing guilt that _sex 0.05, each folded away an unsaid truth. The final loop closed quietly behind them. No slam, no lock. Only a thin awareness. They had drifted farther from land, not by one wrong turn, but by 1,000 nearly right ones. And in the colorless sky, 5 TBM Avengers still held formation, stubbornly beautiful. For when every axis betrayed, shape was the last thing left. They clung to it as to their very names. No one knew what lay at the end of this line, but the story had already written a sentence. The more you turn, the farther you are. The farther you are, the more you turn. And that is how a squadron, seeking only to find Florida again, slowly entered the silent belt of the ocean, where all curves close and every needle ceases to point. The sky was still ink dark when the small rescue detachment lifted off from the coastal airfield. The Casa 212, white fuselage rimmed with red, roared slowly down the damp runway, then bounced, hung for a beat, and climbed into the air like a small whale breaking the surface. Captain Min tilted the yoke gently, feeling the fuselage quiver under the cold layer of air. Behind him sat First Officer Lan, eyes sharp as pins, monitoring the gauges and the course pre-marked in black pen across a paper chart. Technician Hui leaned against the block of communication gear, indicator lights blinking like wavering stars. Fuel on board 5 hours 10. Hui read aloud into the headset, voice striving for calm. Planned mission 2.5. Return with surplus. Min nodded, staring at the glittering dark ahead. Somewhere offshore, a fishing vessel had gone silent. The northeast monsoon was pressing down fast, driving waves like a herd of mad buffalo. Over the radio, shore control passed along the last known coordinates, a faint point on the grid of latitude and longitude. The plan was clear: fly straight to the area, spiral outward, drop markers, sweep with infrared, then turn back before the sun climbed too high. But plans are frailer than a strand of hair. As the Casa 212 crossed the coastline, town lights receded like extinguished fireflies, and the sea opened. A vast black plain, without crease, without edge. Lan adjusted the GPS, the cursor twitching. Hui tugged his harness tighter. Winds 15 plus, he said, eyes fixed on the sensor. Surface scatter may contaminate the screen. Hold 2,000 feet. Descent at waypoint, Min replied, voice compressed like stone. 8 years earlier, he had once blundered into a low cloud, the wind shaking his helicopter like a toy. Ever since, every maritime sortie tightened his chest like a drawn bowstring. On radar, a thin green streak blossomed into a swelling patch. Lan leaned in. Pop-up cell, 5 degrees right to scope. Hui flipped the infrared camera. Only blurry white streaks of breaking waves. No strong signatures. Begin spiral, Lan said, setting autopilot pattern. Min. Make the arcs wide, don't be stingy. They banked, the sea spinning like a clock face below. 15 minutes later, shore relayed. Nearby fisherman reports flare eastward. Another correction, slight but decisive. Heading 090, Min commanded. The nose pointed into the gray sky where dawn leaked like diluted milk. Hui logged. 0542, turn east, per flare report. Lan bit her lip. She hated such reports, source uncertain, time vague. At sea, a red spark could be signal, or a firework tossed after rice wine. They flew east 15 miles, then 15 more. No flare, only water. Hui noted. Ground speed dropping again. Wind shifting. Fuel gauges trembled. Still 4.5 hours. Enough, if they turned back now, and if the wind relented. Radio rang once more. Possible drift south with current. Suggest heading 180. Min paused, then, we'll adjust. Lan, redraw. She traced another crescent. Each crescent a slice of time. 5 minutes. 10. Fuel unseen, but pouring steadily like sand in a necked glass. By the second half arc, the sun pushed above cloud edges, the sky turning silver. Hui's throat rasped like grit. No AIS. Some small returns. Buoys. Min swept over one. Just floats. Continue, Lan confirmed. Fatigue set in, not from hours but from the tugging sensation of being pulled away like a kite. Every correction was a fresh tug, lengthening the return path. Then, new report, Longhorn east-southeast, 15 miles off Chimhan Island. Min turned another notch. This is the last unverified report, he murmured. After this, westbound. At 900 feet, they cut fans, straining ears for engines. Nothing. Hashtag @Meta. Pause. Rika 0.05. RTB. Thank you. But fuel was thinner than comfort. On return, new squalls, new diversions. A touch and go at the alternate, pumps down, back toward Maine. Each heading change sliced the reserve thinner. By final, winds gusted crosswise. Tower slotted them after civilian traffic. Request priority, fuel minimum. Approved. They landed smooth, reversers roaring, taxied to stand. Hui laughed out loud when the refuel hose locked in. The numbers enough, but narrow. Lan. We need SOP revision. Signal trust tiers, fuel cost modules. Min nodded. In debrief, slides showed their path tangled, each correction a knot. Lan. We must assign reliability levels. Only turn upward, never down. Hui. Add real-time fuel penalty display. The chief asked Min. How was orbiting? Min. Like holding a thin rope to two lives. Each loop wore the rope thinner. Outside, the day was bright. Inside, silence held weight. Lan. No fuel wasted. Each drop bore their names. But we must spend them in order. Later, alone in the cockpit, Min closed his eyes. Rain, static, voices returned. Each turn had a price. Each deviation stretched the path. And yet, in the end, those drops became meaning. He smiled. Next time, he would still turn, but with clearer eyes on the cost. Then he rose, leaving behind the warm scent of metal and the faint echo of a day when every ounce of fuel became life. The cockpit glowed faintly with the green light of the control panel, numbers dancing like cold fireflies. The young pilot, Lieutenant Kai, sat in the co-pilot's seat, palms slick with sweat, gripping the yoke so tightly that his knuckles turned white. He heard the steady roar of the engines, but in his head another rhythm played, the frantic, uneven pounding of his heart. At first, Kai placed absolute trust in Captain Min, the seasoned commander who had logged hundreds of hours over the sea. But as course changes piled up and the flight stretched longer, with fuel draining faster than expected, a strange unease crept into Kai's mind. It began as a fleeting thought. Was Min truly choosing the right path? That thought grew darker, heavier, until it became a shadow blanketing everything Kai once trusted. He stole glances at his captain. Min remained steady, eyes forward, voice sharp with authority. Yet Kai saw that confidence as a hard shell, its inside unknown. What if he's wrong? Kai wondered, the doubt gnawing at the roots of his faith. Outside the window, the sea blurred beneath gray clouds, waves reduced to indistinct, meaningless lines. No bearings, no landmarks, no target, only a winding, endless flight path. Kai realized he no longer knew east from west. The instruments still glowed, still displayed their numbers, but their language felt foreign. He read, he understood, but belief had slipped away. The fear deepened when Hui, the technician, murmured about the fuel. 3 hours left, then 2:40, then 2:15. Each report shrank Kai's heart smaller still. What if the fuel runs out over the sea? The thought tingled through his scalp, sweat trickling down his spine. He imagined the aircraft losing thrust, plunging into the ocean, vanishing like a stone dropped into water. In that state of strain, Kai began doubting himself. He tried to recall lessons, the simulator drills, but memory blurred, leaving only blanks. If the captain gave a wrong order, he understood. The greatest fear was not running out of fuel, but the doubt corroding him, dragging him into his own darkness. The air grew heavier. Each faint beep from the console made Kai flinch, as though someone rapped against his spine. The radar showed only hazy green dots, splitting, merging, forming meaningless streaks. The more he stared, the more his mind spun, unable to tell signal from noise. Lan reported coordinates in her crisp tone. Min issued calm orders, but to Kai, their words fell into a void, powerless to reassure. His head throbbed with a refrain. What if they're wrong? What if I'm wrong? What if we're all flying into nothing? Fear seeped deeper, not only into his thoughts, but his body. His hands trembled on the controls, his eyes stung from the strain, his chest constricted, every breath heavy. Part of him wanted to scream, to force a return. Another part whispered that doing so would brand him a traitor to his crew. The drumbeat in his mind grew louder. Not enough fuel, not enough fuel. Until it drowned even the engines. He blurted out again, harsher this time. "Captain, how long before we turn back? Are we sure we'll make it?" The cockpit froze. Hui shot him a look, half surprise, half irritation. Lan bit her lip, hand paused mid-control. Min's reply came low, firm. "We'll make it. Stay calm. Your duty is to monitor and assist, not to doubt." The words cut like a blade, severing his spiral, but wounding him too. He bowed his head, but a storm churned inside. "Not to doubt? But I do doubt. I don't believe anymore." Shame mingled with fear. He felt small, childish, unready. Shame only tightened the panic. He envisioned disaster, Min clinging too long to a heading, the tanks running dry, the casa plummeting into the sea. In his mind, his parents' faces blurred like photos soaked in salt water. His sister's laughter faded into silence. The fuel needle still sank, but Kai no longer felt the panic flood him. He breathed deep, repeating a mantra. "Hold fear in your palm, don't let it hold you." As they descended toward base, Kai's body tensed, heart quickening. But this time, he clung to every routine, checks, coordinates, reports. Each step a tether holding him to the present, keeping him from falling back into the abyss. The landing was smooth. Wheels kissed the runway. The fuselage trembled gently, then slowed. Kai's eyes blurred. Whether from sweat, tears, or both, he couldn't tell. A sigh, a quiet laugh from Hui, a silent touch on his shoulder from Lan. All said the same. We made it. When the engines fell silent, so did the cabin. Kai removed his headset, his ears ringing, but his heartbeat steadying. He knew he had survived a war, not with storms or fuel, but with the fear inside him. Outside the aircraft, Kai looked up at the wide gray sky. It was still bleak, still unpromising. Yet instead of being swallowed, he felt a new resolve. Next time, he would face it with a stronger heart. A pilot, he now knew, must fight not only the sky, but the shadows within. Clenching his fist, he vowed, "Fear will always exist, but it will not break me." And with that, he walked into the morning sun with his crew, carrying the hardest lesson of the flight. Sometimes, the true enemy is not out there, but within.